Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September Executive Meeting. I want to start with something a little bit sad. As some people might be aware, Captain Godwin lost her life on the Lightwater bypass on Friday night. From everything I can read in the press, she was an absolute star in terms of her military career. It's a shame Councillor Thorne's not here. He would probably know the significance of the Sword of Honour from Sandhurst more than perhaps some of us would, but clearly top of the class, distinguished sporting career within the military as well, and clearly somebody that broke through the glass ceiling as well by being the first female member of the most senior army regiment, which is the Life Guards. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to express certainly my condolences, and I'm sure all members and officers as well, to the friends and families and army colleagues of Captain Godwin at this sad time. So if we move on with the agenda, apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Morgan Rise and Councillor Leanne McIntyre have sent apologies.
Thank you. Any comments on the minutes, item 2? Anybody? Okay, and we're probably good to sign. Thank you. Declarations of interest associated with tonight's agenda. Anybody want to comment on that? Item 3. No, let me just, I'm getting ahead of myself now, so just 1 second. That's good, I haven't got any declaration of interest, that's fine. Happy down here, is that where we're looking for it next? Yeah, where it says chair, yes, and large friend letter. Okay. Are you joining us, sir? You joining us, gentlemen? Yeah, please, you're very welcome. The public gallery's there at the back. If we move on to public question time. Did we receive any public questions?
Thank you, Chair. We received one, but unfortunately it was too late after the deadline for receipt of questions.
Okay, so we did receive some, but it was out of time. Okay, well, I guess there'll be opportunities for those questions to be raised at a different point in time. Questions by members. Item 5. Right, so I've seen some hands go up. Hang on. Did I miss you before, Councillor White? Has it just gone up now?
It's just gone up now.
Okay, goody. Right, so over to yourself then, please.
Oh, thank you. I thought I'd be last in line, but thank you very much. I have 2 questions, but they are connected. So I have been asked by residents in my ward, Bagshot, to appeal to the Executive Committee to revisit their decision to close the public toilets in Bagshot. Never thought I'd be talking about toilets. They believe that this decision is short-sighted and not properly thought out. The decision, I believe, was taken at the July executive meeting as part of the transformation programme. I was unable to attend that meeting, but recently found mention of the proposed decision to close public facilities in the borough in the papers, along with 50 other proposed saving options. Note to self, do not speed read anymore, my bad. Now I can hear a comment forming, which has been thrown at me before, let the parish council pay for this sort of thing. They have the money. Well, the Bagshot Village Committee committed nearly all its available SIL money to traffic calming infrastructure scheme. So my other question, which is connected, is over the years, how much money has gone into the borough's SIL pot from development in Bagshot? Yes, we get 15%, but how much of what's left contributes to that pot, a pot the villages are denied access to? Anyway, back to the original question. The Bagshot facility is a well-used facility by
Hang on a second,
walkers.
hang on a second. Councillor White, hang on. You're throwing a lot of stuff at us there and you're jumping around quite a bit. So can we do one thing at a time? Can we do one
Well,
thing?
no, it's all connected.
Well, no, because you've just
With the
asked, no, it's not connected. You've just asked a lot of detail around SIL funding in Bagshot. That was a question in itself. And then you started off on
I have
public
asked that
toilets.
question of Kieran Bartlett, and he will be coming back to me. And I just mentioned it because of what I'm going to say later on.
Right,
So if you
okay.
let me finish, and then
Well, that wasn't clear from
Okay.
your original statement. So
I
let's
do
have one.
apologise.
Yeah, thank you. Let's have one question at a time. Thank you for good order, and so everybody else in the public can also follow. Thank you.
Anyway, the Bagshot facility is well used by walkers, runners, cyclists, mums with young children, the elderly, bus drivers, van drivers, and many, many more, even our own councillors. In my opinion, it will be a great mistake to close any of the facilities in the borough, but in my case, obviously, especially Bagshot. Maybe I should have started a petition to show you the strength of feeling in the village, but we all know they a waste of time. I'm sorry, but they are. I have looked in the papers and I've seen that this year there will be no saving closing this facility, and next year would be 18k. I've seen how much this is going to save the council. Surely they can remain open until other options have been explored. So the main question is, please, can you look at keeping them open, even just for a bit longer, till the options are explored? And can the SIL money that is in the pot be used maybe for modernising and keeping them open indefinitely?
Thank you, Councillor White. I'm just going to take some feedback from officers.
Okay.
Thank you for your patience. Mr. Stevens is just going to respond to a couple of points, and I'll come back further to that. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor White. So 2 points I'd like to pick up on, if I may. The first one, obviously, you suggest that Mr. Bartlett will come back to you in relation to the SIL contributions for Bagshot as a ward. So I will leave that with him to share with you and other councillors present. The second point was in relation to your question around the use of the community infrastructure levy for upgrading the toilets or improving them and then paying for their upkeep for an extended period of time. The first element, yes, that could be achievable if we were minded to do that. Unfortunately, we couldn't use SIL for revenue. So it's not something that we could do to fund the ongoing maintenance, repair as a consequence of vandalism, or even the opening and closing and cleaning of those toilets. So we would have to find that money from somewhere else.
So can I just come back on that, Leader?
No, could we deal with all your points and then we'll give you the right to reply.
Okay, okay.
If I may, Chair, yes, you are right. I did miss a point off there. In relation to the closing of toilets, that wasn't a decision of the executive. The transformation programme is a mix of a variety of different initiatives, as you rightly said, Councillor White. Some of them are delegated and some of them are a decision for either council or the executive. The toilet decision was in fact a delegated decision. It was an officer decision. But for transparency, we decided it was best to take that to Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee, amongst all of the other efficiencies we were looking to deliver, as well as taking it to executive for the same reasons.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Just to deal with one of your other points, I think, around SIL, Councillor White, there is nothing stopping the Wynsham Parish Council putting forward proposals for the SIL money. I think the policy that we recently signed off made that very clear, and the debate was in the chamber. So you can bring forward projects to the executive, as can your fellow ward councillors. I'd like to go back to your point around the savings, because I'm often asked by members of the public, and indeed some councillors too with selective memory, perhaps like yourself, why we're having to reduce the scale and scope of the council to make savings. The reason is that the Conservatives' debt mess,
point of order, we're in a pre-election
speculation
period.
And systematic financial mismanagement. These matters all deal with the affairs of Surrey Heath Borough Council. These are all in the public domain, Councillor Cope. This administration was elected in May 2023, inheriting the previous Conservative administration's 2023-2024 budget and their finance team and processes, or lack of, as well as 4 years of no annual financial accounts and no external audits. This is the equivalent of flying blind without instruments, not bothering to maintain the aircraft properly, or listen to air traffic control's instructions.
Sorry.
A serious
Sorry,
crash.
Linda, can I just interrupt there? Sorry.
Yeah.
You did say before you started that you were going, if asked about council finances, you would explain the current position. Can I ask you to stick to the facts as we are in the pre-election period, as opposed to referring to the previous administration? Just set out the current position in terms of finances.
But the As I was saying, a serious crash was on the cards, as I forecast in my statement to residents in September 2023, despite the failure to listen by previous senior officers and denial by other members and their commentators. Due to the diligence of our financially literate team in continuing to challenge the previous senior officers to understand our true financial position and comply with good practice, and my thanks to Leanne McIntyre in particular for her efforts, it was concluded that the Finance Department was not fit for purpose, and the Executive supported a substantial investment in resources in November 2023. Alas, due to the normal lag of recruitment processes from any such decisions, this investment was unable to influence the 2024-25 budget in February 2024. And the previous chaotic situation remained embedded in the Council. As members are obliged to pass a budget and take due note of the Section 151 officers' personal statements as directed by law, our administration had to modify our own budget to register our severe concerns on the areas of financial risk that answers had not been provided for, relating to the lack of annual accounts and specifically opening reserve balance as of the 31st of March 2023 that we inherited. There was no more legally we could do to challenge the financial status reported by the Section 151 officer as per discussions with the previous Chief Executive and the Council's monitoring officer. Following recruitment of a sufficiently capable finance team, including the current excellent Section 151 officer, 4 years of annual accounts were duly prepared during spring-summer 2024, which gave the true insight into the debt mess. Overnight, it became visible that for 7 straight years in a row, the Council had failed to budget sufficiently for its debt repayments, both capital and interest in total. Whether the interest rates were low or at stratospheric levels, during a certain Prime Minister's special operations project to crash the British economy, the Council budgeted broadly the same. When base rates were low, the variance between budget and actual was significant but manageable and visible through accounts and audits. However, when short-term interest rates were higher and noticing the previous administration's failure to lock in the 100 million of debt, our short-term interest repayments increased rapidly, unsustainably. The medium-term financial strategy for 2024-25 that this administration reviewed privately in detail and then presented publicly, based on the previous Section 151 submission to us, assumed 8.4 million for debt payments. The administration had no visibility at any time from any officer that the general ledger entry was 4.8 million, a rollover of the approach from previous years, particularly when it came to debt interest payment assumptions of 2.1 million, a delta of 3.6 in just 1 year. I can go through the under-budgeting deviations year on year to the pound and penny for members if they wish, particularly those that forget how we got here. Let's take 2023 as an example, the last year of the previous administration. 4.5 million budgeted, 8 million actual, 3.5 million gap. Members can only make decisions based on the accuracy and completeness of information provided, which in this case, due to structural weaknesses in the previous finance team, was erroneous. As a result of the debt mess inherited, including systemic financial mismanagement,
I have already mentioned it. It's just that there's not going to be any saving this year. So why can the toilets not be left open for the remainder of the year? And, you know, maybe we can find some action in the meantime of how to keep them open permanently. Is it possible to keep them open longer?
we'll come back to you in the normal time frame on that. Thank you, Councillor White.
Thank you.
Councillor Garrett, please.
Thank you. I've got one very small question, and then I've got a more detailed question. Is it possible for us to have a breakdown by ward of the SIL funding that's available for all councillors? Because we haven't seen that for a while, and I know it's issued annually, but there's been some amendments since. So if we could have that, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Garrett.
Yeah.
We'll certainly look into that for you, but I don't see any reason why not. Thank you.
Thank you. So my main question was, I popped into town on Saturday and noticed there was an event being run by Love Betty, so I came back in again on Sunday with my little pooch. What I did notice while I was in town, and it's probably more relevant to the portfolio holder, is there's been comments on Facebook and to me about the number of empty units in town, and it's increasing. I mean, Julian Charles is shut this week. We know Craft Coop's going to go at the end of the year, end of the month. Menkind's gone. And there's a number of other shops that have gone. Yours, I think, is going as well. So my question is, there is already a number of empty units and there are more empty units. It'd be great to understand what it is we are doing. I know we've got the property working group, but I don't remember seeing the current lease structure for maybe a couple of meetings. I know we've had some really detailed, busy meetings, so I appreciate that. But it would be good maybe at the next meeting, or if not sooner, to get an idea of what it is that's going on. Because footfall, I know, is lower in Camberley, but I've also been to the Lexicon recently, and they don't seem to be having the same problem. So it would be good to understand what the problem is.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Councillor Garrett. As you know, as everybody knows, retail has taken a nosedive over the last 10 years due to online shopping. Our town centre isn't unusual in the fact that it has vacant units, and that unfortunately many retailers are either dropping out of the high street or unfortunately going into liquidation because of poor trading. We are working very, very hard to fill those units. We've obviously got a dedicated team within Surrey Heath, but also our partners that we work with are working really hard to fill those units. We have a responsibility and a duty to our taxpayers in Surrey Heath to make sure that we're achieving good rents on those units. As much as it would be nice to be able to give them away for free, we have a responsibility to pay that debt back, which we currently owe for purchasing the town centre in the first place. So it's an amalgam of problems that we're working on. We're working very hard on it, but it's not something that can be rectified overnight. But what I can do is get the relevant officer to come along to the working group, and we can chat around it, and any ideas that you've got or any other members of the group have got, we're happy to take them on board and explore them further.
Thank you. I was in Windsor the other day, and they seem to have a lot of empty units, and I don't think it was a function of their visitor tonight. So I think there is a general issue within retail, as we're aware. Any other questions? Okay, good. Right, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is playground refurbishment. I think, yeah, you're deputising for Morgan. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Good evening, councillors, officers and members of the public. It's my pleasure to bring forward this paper on behalf of Councillor Rise, who can't be here this evening. The paper proposes the approval for the refurbishment of key play parks within our borough. These are much loved amenities, they're well used and important to our communities. The value of physical play for children, both in terms of physical and mental well-being, simply cannot be measured. The role play parks play in bringing parents and carers together is essential in building cohesive communities, albeit that this benefit is often overlooked. The paper proposes the refurbishment of 4 play parks in Heatherside, which was last refurbished in 2010, Frimley Green, last refurbished 2012, Camberley Park just behind us here, so old we're not quite sure how old it is, and Blackdown Road and Bellew Road in Deepcut, last refurbished in 2000. Both Heatherside and Frimley Green, although not quite as old as the other two, enjoy very high levels of usage and are consistently raised by residents as needing an upgrade. Camberley Park is well overdue for some attention also, and the Deepcut Play Park is noted by officers as being in particularly poor state of repair. It's proposed that these works are funded by SIL. You have in your paperwork an outline of works for each site, and I don't propose to go through those now, but I would like to draw your attention to the supplementary paper in particular, which brings to life the vision for these play parks. In line with previous playground refurbishments, community consultation will take place with stakeholders, with children being the most important consultees of all. As you know, it is in my portfolio, but I'm happy to try and answer any questions and refer to officers for their assistance where necessary. Thank you.
Good. Any questions for anybody on this one? Councillor Cope, please.
Thanks. I've got 2. I'll ask them one at a time because I like to stick to the rules. Firstly, I think this on prima facie looks like a really good use of SIL funding. My first question is, have we done any analysis at all as to how utilised these individual sites are? I'm just conscious it's a lot of money, and I just want to check that we're spending it in the right areas.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. As noted, Heatherside and Frimley Green are particularly high usage. Ms Shirlow is on the screen, so perhaps she might like to chime in about the other 2.
Hello there. Sorry, Councillor Cope. Yes, the other two, Camberley Park is obviously it's a pretty well used because it's based obviously within the Camberley town centre. There isn't an actual analysis that has been carried out, but we know that they are highly used play areas. The one in Blackdown Road in particular, we are getting some also funding from Skanska as part of their development. So that is obviously going towards will go towards the cost of replacing the equipment there.
Could I just ask a quick question? So I think, Michelle, you're saying that the Heatherside one and one of the other ones is very heavily used, and the other two are in need of refurbishment. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor MacDonald. Heatherside and Frimley Green in particular, they're both adjacent to schools, obviously adjacent to lots of housing. So and they are almost destination parks where a sort of a thoroughfare where people come through and use both the play parks. So they are incredibly well used.
Any other questions? Please, Councillor Cope.
Thanks. Just in terms of the figure, which I'm pretty sure isn't, no, yeah, 900, the 900,000 figure. The supplement talks about sort of consultation about exactly what the play park renovation will look like. Is there a span of costs, or is 900,000 sort of the upper limit of what we'd be looking to spend on this?
It's definitely one for Ms. Shirlow.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Cope. The problem is with Heatherside, I'll you go through them individually. With Heatherside, there is an issue there with flooding. We have obviously something we have to look at with regard to that and surfacing. And then the Frimley Green as well, there is on a slight ramp. So we are obviously looking at potentially levelling the area. So the costs there are hugely increased. And like I say, with Camberley Park, we have Section 106 money for that site. And Wood End Road, again, we're getting some funding from Skanska.
Councillor Garrett, please.
Thank you. I know we've had this conversation in the chamber before, and maybe we could, it's going to be one I'm guessing is going to go to the direction of Mr. Ashbury, Councillor Ashbury. I need to understand, we've obviously got no money yet. We've got this SIL funding, although the SIL funding is not there, if my understanding is correct, and we need to borrow against it. And I know we've had this conversation in the chamber before. Is it possible to get a clarification of exactly what this is? Because we've just made it really clear we've got no money and we're spending £900,000. Thank you.
I think this might be one for Mrs. Radford to give us, if you're there, please, just to give us the insight into how these are different pots of money.
Yes, of course. So the SIL funds are ring-fenced funds, and they're held, they're sort of held ready to be spent in the future for as long as we need to hold it. We do incur or we do generate income, so we invest that money until it's ready. So that's where the kind of benefit, if you like, to the council of having those funds invested. But it's not classed as usable receipts, general usable receipts for us to just sort of use day to day. So they are for a specific purpose. They've come into us through a planning agreement. So it is a legal document that we have to hold it for certain purposes. And that's laid out in the Section 123 infrastructure list. Does that help?
So my question then, because I know we've had this conversation before, so it is physically sitting in our bank account or available?
Yes, it's physically in our bank account, but it's not available for us to just use on anything.
Okay, thank you.
Please, Councillor Ashbury.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, because I know we have had this conversation, and I've had this conversation with a number of councillors that have spoken to me. The issue is, when we spend it, we have an impact on our revenue spend, because we either have to pay the cost of borrowing or we lose the interest payable where we have it on deposit. So that's the kind of difference between it. Either way, the will have an impact on the revenue. And I'll let Mrs Radford tell me if I've got that wrong, but that has always been my understanding, is you can spend this money, but you can't spend it without impacting our day-to-day spending as a council.
Mrs Radford,
Yeah.
would you like to come back on or add to Councillor Ashby's comment?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Obviously, we're holding that money. We're in effect, without getting too techy, as I normally end up having to do, internal borrowing, and that's why sort of your question around we'd have to borrow for it. We won't have to borrow for that. We'd have to borrow for something that we've essentially internally borrowed in the past for.
But just reiterate, it's been given to the council by developers within the framework for the use for the benefit of the community. So that's really what we're talking about here in terms of the fund, and it's separate to the discussion we had earlier about the council's finances, because it is a separate pot of money for this purpose. Ms Sherlow, I just want to sort of vaguely link to, I think, Councillor Cope's question. Wider than these parks, it feels to me like there's been quite a lot of parks addressed. Some technology things going on there that we don't normally see. Could you just give us a feeling for how many other parks are still likely to need refurbishment, for argument's sake, in the period before we go to unitary?
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Yes, these are really the last 4 that are in need of doing. I mean, when we've recently refurbished Midship, for example, Burrell Road, we got lots of social media negative comments about what's happening with Heatherside and Frimley Green, because they are in dire need. We are conscious that we are having to take out equipment now because it is just no longer fit for purpose, and obviously play equipment is uninsurable. So these are the last 4 that are actually going to need to be actually refurbished, probably within the next 4 to 5 years.
Thank you. But to link to your, I think the essence of your point, Councillor Cope, if there's other opportunities for facilities for our residents, then as per before with Councillor White, please bring forward the proposals. We've been very open to that, not just with the councillors, but also other stakeholders as well, as we are in this interesting period of use it or lose it when it comes to SIL, assuming unitary goes ahead. Any other questions, please? Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you. I don't actually have any questions about this. But before I get into that, I'd ask your indulgence, because I'd just like to, you mentioned sad news right at the beginning of the meeting. There's been some other sad news this week, which concerns Councillor Stuart Stevenson, who sadly passed away over the weekend. And I would just like to express my thanks and gratitude to Stuart Stevenson for the work that he did on the council and indeed in the community generally. And he had an outstanding year as mayor as well. And I think it's important that his family is aware of the contribution which he made and how it is appreciated by this council. Moving on from bad news to what I think we ought to be welcoming as good news. We spend an awful lot of time in this chamber, as we have done indeed this very evening, discussing bad news, and I think this item before the executive at the moment is an example of some good news which ought to be celebrated, really. It's certainly welcomed by residents in Frimley Green and in Deepcut. I hesitate to make too much of the fact that one of these parks is in Wood End Road. Incidentally, it's worth noting that contrary to reports earlier this year, that the council was looking to sell Wood End Road Park. Comments which were made by somebody who ought to know rather better, that this investment is being made jointly between the private sector with Skatska and the Mindenhurst development and the council. So I think it's brilliant news for that part of Deep Cup. I mentioned to somebody earlier that the Frimley Green Recreation Ground, this will be the third refurbishment that I can recall, and I suspect there's probably been more, and that really pays tribute to the degree of use that that park gets from local children. It's in a very central location between a number of schools, and the school children make huge use of that park as they, in particular, come away from their labours of the day behind their desks. So I'd like to, as I say, welcome the good news that this actually presents, in particular for the young people of the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcroft, and thank you for your comments at the beginning. I was conscious I didn't want to step on the Mayor's toes, who will have a chance to comment on that more fully, but thank you for noting it. It was very important and relevant. Any other questions from anybody else on this one? No. Okay. So I think probably Councillor Whitcroft has summarised things quite nicely in terms of this being very, very good development. I'd like to thank the officers involved, Mr. Government and Ms. Sherlow for their contribution to this and attending to my random requests for additional information, including a supplementary paper, which I think helped really bring it alive for everybody exactly what we're doing for our young people. So thank you to them. Are we happy to go with the resolution as it stands? Thank you. Okay, so we move on to the next item, which is changing places. Please.
Hopefully this is a paper that Councillor Whitcroft will also see as a good news piece of paper, as well as colleagues from across the chamber. A change in places facility is more than just a toilet. It is a facility which will enable people to enjoy our town centre and afford them both dignity and equity. It's an inclusive facility which can be used by people with disabilities and various access requirements who require extra equipment and space to allow them privacy, either independently or with their carers, to use public toilets safely and comfortably. Using seal monies to fund this addition to the town centre will ensure that we can revisit quotations for the works from last year, which at the time exceeded allocated budget under what was the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. We are committed within our annual plan to promote healthier and more inclusive communities. After a wider search around the town centre, exploring 4 to 5 locations, they presented either access, safety issues or other constraints. The proposed location is within the ground floor of the square multi-storey car park, close to the Rainbow Cafe. Importantly, this will allow 24-hour access. Planning permission was granted in December 2024 to install the facility in this location. If supported, this project is expected to be finished by the spring 2026, and the committee is invited to approve the recommendation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? And actually, sorry, just before there are any questions, hold on, also Councillor Cope, sorry. Ms Willis, I knew there was something in my head earlier under declarations of interest and it was in relation to this item. So my sister is disabled. I think that's relevant and lives in an adjacent borough. Thank you for patience on that, Councillor Cope, please.
Thank you. Again, at first glance, this looks a sensible use of SIL funding. My question is, the report says that there will be no resource implication, but earlier we've heard that there is resource implication in managing toilets. So I guess, is there an ongoing cost to the council in terms of managing, cleaning this facility, and how easy are these to maintain in the long term?
Thanks for your question, Councillor Cope. Obviously, there will be an ongoing cost, but it is minimal. We're looking at which budget we're going to put that in. It's likely to be with the car parking budget, so that can be managed by the staff who look after the car parks. But it is actually a very low ongoing cost to be able to afford a facility like this to the residents and visitors to our town centre.
Thank you. I feel like you were listening into my conversation with the Chief Executive because I made almost exactly the same point. So thank you, Councillor Cope. Councillor Garrett.
They do say, being a councillor, you get to talk about dog poo and toilets, and we're talking about toilets quite a lot this evening. In the working group, we discussed this at length, and I supported it at the time, and I still support it now. My only question is, I seem to remember us going from a site where we are now, sending the officers away to going back to about 5 other sites, spending an inordinate amount of time deciding where in the town we could find it. And we've now ended up back in exactly the place we did, probably 2 meetings later. So my question is the only reason we've gone back to this because we've now got the funds? I think that's my understanding, but can you just confirm that for me?
Thanks, Councillor Garrett. That's a wonderful example of how hard the councillors work to get things right for residents, isn't it? You're absolutely right. We did approve a sum of monies in an executive meeting previously, and then subsequently the quotes that we got to carry out those works exceeded the amount that we had approved. You know, you're in the working group. We worked really, really hard to try and find the ideal spot where we could do it within the initial budget. And, you know, we talked around the locations and we couldn't find anything that we found was good enough for our residents. So we gave it a second look and decided actually we could probably approach the SEAL Fund to make this happen for residents. And that's why it's being brought before you this evening. It's just finding another pot of money to be able to achieve this for people. So yes, we have worked hard on it, but it has come full circle.
Yeah, I think you're being generous with the 2 meetings, by the way. Unusually, I think it might be more like 6, but okay. Councillor Garrett, please.
So based on all of that, I better declare an interest because it's going to be next to Surrey Heath Age Concern. And I know when they was discussed originally, I know it was discussed as part of the planning, and I'm guessing the planning is still valid because it's within the site period. There was concerns that when the work was started, it might have an issue with the drains, etc., because I think the drain access was next to in front of where Surrey Heath Age Concern was. So I just echo what I think I said at planning and I said at the time. Can we just make sure that they are aware of when the work starts? I know that doesn't come under you, it comes under the team. If we can make sure they're aware of when the work starts, and obviously there's as little upheaval for them as possible.
We'll be very mindful of the neighbours.
Councillor Whitcroft, please.
Thank you, yes. Councillor Fine and Cook anticipated my pleasure at this item, and I should declare an interest too because Parity, who were involved in discussions over this matter, have an incredible facility in Mitchett, my ward, so I probably need to declare a non-pecuniary interest in the fact that I'm very supportive of Parity. I think we need to be very careful about understanding what this facility actually is. It is by no means to be confused with a normal public convenience. It is totally and utterly different from that. And it is designed to assist people with muscle wasting conditions, which means that they cannot perform the normal functions which come naturally to the rest of us without assistance. And it is critically important, and I'm sure everybody here would agree with this, that proper facilities are provided to meet that need. It's a need which is met in neighbouring boroughs, and the ideal position, I think, for this facility is smack bang in the centre of our town. And I welcome it, and I wish it well, and the sooner it operates, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitcroft. Anybody else? No, I think, listen, this is a great project for all residents. It could be potentially liberating for people with various conditions, and of course not all the conditions are visible in themselves. So it's a great opportunity to allow people to enjoy a better quality of life, and helps us meet our obligations to provide equity as well. So it's really positive story. Councillor Garrett's right to identify that we've been around the houses on this one, and thank you to the officers for diligently working through all the alternative locations and basically having to strike out each and every one of them on the basis that they had a significant flaw. So thank you, Mr. Breeden, to your team for that. So yes, we are back where we started. As Councillor Whitcroft said, it does feel like the right place. And as we've commented before in this chamber, we're all getting a little bit older every day. Our borough is a fairly mature borough and getting more mature. And therefore potentially the people that will need to access this facility, particularly in the case of things like dementia and other conditions, will also be on the increase as well. So it's very much the right thing to do. You could argue it potentially links to our conversation earlier about the retail units. Maybe that will be our USP, that we're creating an environment where we're undercover and we have good accessible facilities for people, which is great. So thank you again to the officers for their work on this. Councillor, thank you for your work on this as well, because you've been around the houses on it as well. So if there's no other comments, are we happy with the resolution as it stands? Oh, hang on one second. There is a question mark with this one. Which pot of money, SIL money, we take it from. I'd like to propose an amendment to the resolution to suggest that it comes from the town ward pot in consultation with the ward councillors. The potential, as it's located in town, it's a substantial project. It will help address a fairly healthy balance that we have there, and provide flexibility for other projects within the rest of the borough going forward. So are we okay with the resolution as it stands, with the additional aspect that it comes from the town ward pot, which is the pot that we mirror what happens in the parishes, the 15% that Councillor White mentioned earlier? Are we agreed on that? Agreed. Have you got everything you need for that, Mr. Willis? Thank you. Excuse me, sir. Sir, could you either sit down or go into a general public area? But to be honest, it's quite distracting, you hovering around in the centre aisle as we try to manage the meeting. So thank you. One way or the other, I don't mind. Yeah. Although if we could keep the social media activity down to a minimum, because I'm not sure we've necessarily signed up to be in your pictures. Okay, so that's that item. If we move on, we have the next item is Yorktown Car Park. Again, back over there.
Right. Whilst the Yorktown car park may be an important facility to those living and working nearby, it rarely gets even half full. It produces a net income of £9,000 a year, which is £1.26 a week for each of the 137 bays. For these reasons, the site has been earmarked for redevelopment in the new local plan in order to meet the borough's housing need, as set out by central government. The new local plan has been subject to 2 statutory consultations, and no objections were raised in either consultation to the allocation of this site for housing. Accordingly, part of the site has been marketed for sale to assess whether it can generate a much-needed capital receipt which could be used to reduce the council's substantial debt burden. The remainder of the car park, which the council would own and operate, would still have 64 bays, which is more than enough to cope with the current demand. Any new housing developments will be required as part of their planning consent to provide sufficient car parking on their own sites. The outcome of the marketing exercise is at Annex 2 of the paper. The financial case to release part of this car park for housing is, in my view, compelling. In addition, I am satisfied that sufficient spaces will be retained and the proposal is recommended for approval.
Okay, any questions on this one, please? Well, that was pretty inevitable. There was going to be a question from somewhere. Thank you, Councillor Coke, please.
Thank you. I was just looking at the local plan, which obviously does, as you correctly say, include this site. But it does say that development proposals are required to retain and or re-provide the public car park currently on site. Now, it sounds like we've moved the goalposts there, because you're now saying you will retain the amount of car parking that you deem to be sufficient. That's not what the local plan says. So can you clarify why that's changed, how that's changed, and whether that's even allowed?
Thank you, Councillor Cope. Who's taking this one? Because we've also got the head of... Okay, take it.
Yeah, the local plan says that we retain car parking on site. It doesn't say the whole of that car park and it doesn't clarify numbers of spaces.
I'm sorry, but it says it will retain and or re-provide the public car parking currently on site, as in what's there now.
I think that's your interpretation of what the local plan says, Councillor Cope.
So perhaps we can have an officer interpretation of what the local plan says. And surprisingly, we've got the relevant person in the room. Please, Mr. Bartlett.
Good evening, everyone. I thought it'd be helpful just to highlight what the strategic land availability assessment identifies for this site. The latest version of that is the 2025 version. It informs the site allocations in the plan. In that site assessment, it says the existing car park use could be retained on a smaller area of the site. So that's supplementary to the local plan. It's part of the evidence base, but the wording of the policy would allow for re-provision in terms of what's deemed required for that site and based on the information available, that could be considered a smaller area. Obviously, to deliver 27 units on that site, you would need to remove some parking, and the site is allocated for 27 units. I hope that clarifies it.
Thank you. So just for those of us that are local plan gurus like yourself, you're saying that there's a supplementary evidence base that's supportive and is an add-on to the point that Councillor Cope made because it clarifies it in more detail. Is that correct?
Yes, so that evidence base informs the allocation, and the 27 units takes account of the need to provide some level of parking on the site.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Garrett, please.
I've got a couple of questions, so I'll try and do the ones relevant at the same time. So, from what my understanding of the paper is, there were 61 bays, 3 disabled and 10 electric. I'm assuming it's plus 10 electric, not 61 including the 10 electric. The average use of that car park would be 47, from the calculations I've seen, which means there would be X amount of spaces left, so that fits in with there'll be spaces available. If there's 27 apartments, they would need to have 1.2 parking spaces, based on obviously I come from the planning committee, so looking at the stats. So my concern is related to parking and related to and I will not go into the details of the bid because I totally understand we can't do that, but it's conditional of getting planning. And my concern is we're selling this because we want the money to come in, totally get that, but it's conditional on planning. How quickly is the planning likely to come through? We always have an issue with parking when planning applications come through, and I know we can't prejudge that, but my concern is how quickly are we going to get the money for this based on the fact that we've got an offer in, but we've also got to go through the planning. I don't know if it's in the pre-app list, it might be in the pre-app list. So that's basically a summary of my concerns. When we talked about this initially, I didn't have an issue with the selling of that. I totally get why. Looking at the data now, I just want to get a drill down on what that is. And I have another question, but I'll leave that one for now.
Okay, so I'd like to just break down Councillor Garrett's points into a couple of different things, if you don't mind. So you mentioned a lot of numbers there. Maybe we could just get clarity on the numbers. So we're going, the plan here is to move to 64 bays, including 3 disabled bays, which I think is the proportionate percentage. I think you had a question around the electric charging bays.
Yeah, it mentions 10 EV, so
whether that was
included or
included,
plus?
whether that was included in the 64 or was additional. So could I just get clarity on that point, please, first?
It's included in the 64.
Thank you. And they're not moving, they're the same locations as today. Thank you. There was a nod there from Mr. Breeden. Okay. Then the second point you made, I think, was the planning process. As I think you're aware, planning is a non-executive function. It has its own timelines and will come forward as and when the developer sees fit and complies with the relevant policies for the officers and or the planning committee to review it. I think Mr. Bartlett's itching to comment on that, so his finger's heading for the button, so I'll let him add to that.
I just thought it would be helpful to highlight that because it's in the submitted local plan, it does carry material weight in a planning decision, so that would have to be taken into account in a forthcoming planning application. So the allocation in essence sets the principle of development.
The other point I think you raised was around the parking requirement, and as far as I remember, although you know I'm a moonlighter on planning applications committee, it will depend on the development that comes forward, how many spaces, and it will be for the developer, should they decide to develop the land, to come forward with the solution to comply with the plan. I mean, that does sound like a bit of an if but maybe, but that is the rules of the game, as I think you appreciate, Councillor Garrett, that it's not, the onus is not on us to do that, it's on the developer should they wish to bring something forward. Councillor Cope, I think you've regrouped to want to come back.
I'm still very confused, but I guess my follow-up question, sort of going back to the point I've made, because looking at the local plan as submitted, Limb 2D is clearly irrelevant and being ignored. Are the other limbs in any way varied, or can residents rely on these ones being complied with? Because I'm just very confused on what the point of the local plan is if it can just be varied on a whim.
I think that's heading your way again, Mr. Bartlett.
No, not at all. So it is a case in terms of 2D in it's a matter of planning judgment as to what level of re-provision is required. But I would go back to the point that the site is allocated as a whole, and therefore there is the assumption that 27 units would be delivered on that site. In order to do so, you would need a reduction in the current parking levels. So I think that's the key point there. I hope that clarifies it.
Can I just ask, are any of these other limbs, have they been varied by supplemental documents at all?
No, the supplementary document informs the allocation, so it comes into consideration as part of the allocation process.
For those of us that are not sure what a limb is, can you help us there, Councillor Cope?
Sorry?
It's a limb.
Oh, sorry, I meant 2A, 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E. Sorry,
Perfect.
lawyer jargon.
No, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It's fine. Please, Councillor Garrett.
I still haven't got to my second point, but I'm just going to ask. I want to drill down this parking because it is key for me. Not that I'm not making the decision. So the 10 EV parkings are included with the 64, which means we've only got 54 parking spaces. Now, 47 is the average or normal, and I know last Christmas we used 75. So that means suddenly this car park will be overfull. Just throwing that out there as an idea.
So I'll come back on that one, Councillor Garrett. Can you hit your buttons?
Yeah, sorry.
I'll come back on that one. So I think, broadly speaking, people would accept that Tuesday is a fairly reasonable, busy working day. It's not the Monday, not the Friday, which I think people traditionally are trying to avoid coming to the office. I think that's fair. And I think it would also be fair to say that the middle of the day is also usually when this car park would be used, potentially for business uses, etc. So I thought I'd do a bit of research this afternoon. 35 cars were in that car park at 2:30 in the afternoon. Now, I know that's only one data point, but the data that the officers have prepared, I think, indicates that this car park is significantly underutilised. And not only that, the residence time, I think in one of the papers said that it was around the three-hour mark. So we've got a significantly underutilised car park in terms of the number of parking occurrences, and the residence is also quite low. So I accept your point. There may be squeezes at individual moments in time, but then that's no different to anywhere else in the borough at particular moments in time. The statistics, I think, show that there is enough capacity here for the demand that we're seeing. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lead, and thank you, Councillor Garrett. I have an advantage over you in that I have the dwell time report for that car park. And the 47 is an average number over the last, per day, not at any instant during the day. I've got the report here that I got from Mr. Burns yesterday, that from May, June and July this year, the peak number of cars in that car park at any one time was 43. So there were more during the day, but the peak number of spaces used in a 3-month period was 43. Okay.
How many last points you got?
No, what I did, I just haven't got to the last point. I was just going back on the first one. Right, so and it's a really simple one. It's disappointment that we have discussed in this chamber at planning and in this chamber at executive on a number of occasions the need for social housing. Okay, we already have a social housing provider that offers social housing on this site. I will not mention them. They have been approached to see if they were interested in social housing on this site where we already have social housing, yet they are not interested. Okay? And then we can't make these people do it, but it is really disappointing that our social housing, one of our social housing providers, does not want to build on a site that is pretty close to one they already have. And I am just frustrated. That is not the executive's fault, I totally get that, but I wanted to make it clear that I am frustrated and make it clear on YouTube and anywhere else that wants to go that I'm frustrated. Because I know we've offered them other sites and they've not interested in them either. I'm off my soapbox.
Thank you for going on the soapbox, Councillor Garrett. So I think the officers have done it. I'm sure you did it when you were in administration, if I'm allowed to say that still. Certainly I personally have done it as well on a one-to-one basis. So I think we can all have, we all know that we need affordable houses in this borough. We need houses for key workers, and indeed just this week, Mr. Stevens and I were in such a conversation. So it's with external party. It's a desperate need, and this would be a potential location, as there are others as well. And unfortunately, nobody's coming to the table. We can only hope that others in higher places may start pushing funding down and make things happen now that the music stopped in the ministerial merry-go-round. And that can see the sort of change that I think you and I both want, so that we have places for our young people and key workers. But I honestly will sleep without problem to know that I did my best on this particular issue to try and bring people to the table, as I know others have in this room. Yeah. I keep looking at Mr. Bartlett. You wanted to go again? No. Sorry, it's just you're automatically in the lean forward position. No, that's good. I just want to take just counsel from the monitoring officer for a second. Hang on a second. Okay, thank you for your patience there. Any other questions? Good. Okay. So, and it was kind of Councillor Garrett to mention that there are elements of this that are in exempt, but it's good that we're all suitably well trained there, that we're not going there. But are we happy with the recommendation as it stands? Agreed. Okay, thank you. Item 9, Obelisk Way. I think you're on a roll today. Please.
All right, 5 to 13 Obelisk Way is located to the northeasterly corner of the main shopping area within Camberley Town Centre, formerly known as the Lytton Tree. Despite it being fully let, the building currently produces a negative net income of minus £4,500 per annum. It is adjacent to the London Road development site, and although not within this allocation, the site has potential to benefit from the surrounding redevelopment and is designated in the local plan as a primary shopping area within Camberley Town Centre, both of which support mixed-use regeneration, including residential development. Should the council continue to own the building, it will require substantial repairs in the near future, which would mean unavoidable capital expenditure. The current valuation can be seen in Annex 2. The building is more valuable being sold off separately, with the potential to convert the current retail use into a mixed commercial residential scheme. This will create homes as well as reducing the oversupply of retail within the town centre. The outcome of the marketing exercise is at Annex 3 of the paper. The financial case to release this building for sale is, in my view, compelling, and the proposal is recommended for approval. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on this one? Councillor Cope, please.
It's not a question, but just as I get a bit of a reputation for opposing all of these, I just wanted to say I think this is quite a sensible disposal.
I agree with Councillor Cope, but I don't want to predetermine myself because I've still got to listen to the debate. Councillor Garrett.
So we're double act tonight, doesn't it? I just asked a question I asked earlier on that didn't get an answer to, but I'm in support of this because I think it's a good use of. I suppose there is an element of me that thinks maybe we should do some joined up because we're just about to knock down another bit of building. It'd be nice to do it all together, but hey, if we can get this sold off and someone's interested, and that comes back to my question. This is can I say this? I better not say that. This offer is a situation where we're going to get some money for it. Are we going to get that quick enough for it to be able to be utilised? Because the previous one I alluded to, and obviously other purchases other land we've sold. When does that money actually hit our bank account? I don't want to go into the deep on this one, but just to understand that process. If you say tonight we're going to go ahead, when does it actually appear in the account?
It would be quicker than if it was a conditional offer, as per the previous one. So it will be speedy, and it will assist this administration going forwards.
Do we have any best guess to answer Councillor Garrett's question on this one, Mr. Breeden?
Yeah, the timescales are set out in the exempt annex in column 1.
We're all looking at column 1, but we can't comment on it. Which particular part should we look at?
Near the bottom, it's in the grey, it says timescales, and then alongside it, it's got a timescale.
Yeah, thank you. Sure, please.
We all live in the real world, and I totally get. I now have to take my glasses off. Hang on. I understand what it's saying. So, is that circa that time from the decision 7 days after the decision is made, or is that a time scale from another point? I.e., looking at that time scale, we'll have something in our bank account by the end of the year.
Yes, if everything goes according to plan, yes.
Whereas I think we're probably saying with the previous one, it would be 3 to 6 months or whatever. but your guess is as good as mine. Okay, any other questions on this one? No? Okay. So are we happy with the resolution as it stands? Agreed. Okay. I know this is one you've all been waiting for, the award of the contract for revenues and benefits system. And thank you to those that stayed online, Mr. Preston. This is, so I'll introduce this one. This is effectively a continuation of a contract for our existing system, continual access to various updates, and puts us in a good position with respect to the change to Unitary, as we envisage that the Unitary will want to see the council tax collected efficiently and effectively, and gives any new Unitary time to consider its consolidation of various systems. So I think that's about it, but Mrs. Radford, is there anything you want to add on this paper? Or Mr. Preston, indeed, seeing as this is your bread and butter?
Nothing specifically, no. I think you mentioned everything. I think the main purpose of this is to see us into the new authority and to be able to give the new authority time, whereas the current end date is, very shortly around vesting day, and that's just not practical for anybody.
Thank you. As I understand it, there's a handful of players in the market and in use within Surrey, so there will be an exercise to be done.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody decides to do the consolidation process, not just for this, but for other systems in use. Okay. Any questions on this one? Councillor Garrett.
Can I get in before Councillor Cope does? Just a very, and I know this is exempt, so I won't go into the detail. So we're signing up to X amount of time. There's obviously a large amount on this. First question is, I'm assuming we don't have to pay it all in one go. We have to pay it annually. And second question is, based on, and Councillor Ashby is going to hate me because I'm going to mention LGR and all them sort of questions we've had before. But are we committing to something that we could get tied into? I mean, we won't be here, but will someone else get tied into? Or are we saying that extra 3 years to 2029 is not a problem anyway, and there won't be any tie-in, etc., if that makes sense?
Right. The paper is as it stands, but Mrs. Radford, do you want to comment on that? And again, we just need to watch the exemptive. We can go to exemptive if we need to. I just don't think we need to. Mrs. Radford, please.
Yeah, it does tie us into that time frame, but I think I've mentioned this before with other big key systems of a council. It's not quick to be procure, so what we have done is allow enough time after vesting day for any new council to do a proper thorough review of their systems and then go out to procurement, as well as then have the transition from one system to another. It's not to be underestimated, a system of this nature and the large quantities of data in it will need time, and other local government reorganisation systems such as this, many years into the new authority, they are still using that system for legacy data. So what we're trying to do is just create some stability of the systems until the new authority has time to do that review. I mean, there's lots of other things they're going to need to be doing, and they don't want to be sort of procuring a brand new system for something as critical as this in the first year.
And just to clarify on the first point, this is an annual figure and we're paying it annually. We're not, fine, thank you.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is the second one we've had like this, where it's gone. I think this one goes 3.5 years into into potential new unitary. I think the previous one was maybe 2.5 or something. So you're right to highlight there is a ongoing issue of potentially reducing down the options for the new authority, but the classic phrase, cash is king. The new authority is going to want to get the cash in, and this is the system that enables it. So any other questions? I felt like you were wanting to add something there, Stevens, were you, or not? Okay, go for it. Well, go for it if you want to.
Just to elaborate on the point that Mrs. Radford made around procurements, there is a lot that we need to make sure is in place leading into unitary status. So you'll be aware that we're talking about re-provision of a waste contract. That waste contract expires, our current waste contract expires in 2027. To go into a new unitary authority without having a contract in place would be hugely unpopular with all of our residents who like to have their bins collected. In the same regard with this system, people like to have their benefits paid into their accounts, and if there isn't a system in place, that falls over. We're looking at these, as are all the other boroughs and the county council, to make sure that we are safe. I think that's the most critical phrase here, and legal moving into new unitaries. Without these systems and without putting these procurements in for an extended period of time beyond the vesting day, there is a real risk for those new unitaries. So it's important that we have these conversations and agree these contracts.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay. So we're happy with that one as it stands? Agreed. Okay. I think that's us for this evening. Unless I've missed anything. No, good. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you to the members of the public. And we'll see you at a date still to be agreed, I think, in October, up for some discussion. Yeah, thank you very much.